SLT Mobitel Fiber, the fiber of the nation. SLT Mobitel Fiber, the fiber of the nation.
නව ඩොමෙක්ස් පැල්ලම් සහ විසබීජ අවම කර දින 3ක් දක්වා ටොයිලට් එක ෆ්‍රෙෂ්ව තමයි ඩොමෙක්ස්.
Tonight, dwarfing Delta, a more infectious variant of concern, Omicron, confirmed.
Despite vaccination, people have infected, and also despite getting the Delta infection, they have got a reinfection with this new Omicron variant.
So Omicron, it's really important that we have good SARS-CoV-2 surveillance around the world.
Repercussions of living beyond means. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa gives a reality check, warning of unpopular policy interventions in the short term.
Understand that these measures are being imposed because we have little other choice in our present situation.
A must. Health experts call on parents to ease up on COVID fears at schools.
Virtual learning is not a substitute for traditional classroom.
In Parliament, opposition MP rails against the conduct of the Plantation Management Monitoring Division.
Plantation Management Monitoring Division created to monitor the plantation companies. In fact, they are doing some other business. Soon after they retire from the PMMD, they are going to be CEO to the companies.
All that and much more coming up on First at 9, this Saturday the 27th of November 2021.
Nelly, මතකෙන් ගිලිහුණු black shiny කෙස් කලඹක රහස Sunsilk Black Shine සමගින්.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening, welcome to First at 9. I'm Dhammik Naik. Now then, the new variant identified from South Africa was declared as a variant of concern today by the World Health Organization, and it was given the name Omicron. An epidemiologist hypothesizes that the possibility of the new variant being 500% more transmissible than the Delta variant is likely, though the WHO is yet to make such an estimation. Meanwhile, the Director General of Health Services said that people with a travel history to several African countries will not be able to enter Sri Lanka from tomorrow.
Just as the world was getting used to dealing with the Delta variant of COVID-19, the discovery of another variant was announced yesterday. The new variant, initially identified as B11529, was found in South Africa and was observed to have over 30 mutations on its spike protein. This observation raised concerns among health experts as the increased number of mutations mean that the possibility for the variant to evade vaccine-induced immunity is high. It's also more transmissible. As such, the World Health Organization's Technical Advisory Group on Virus Evolution yesterday advised the global health body that the new variant should be classified as a variant of concern. Just as its predecessors, the new variant too is assigned a Greek letter. It is now called Omicron.
There are few cases where despite vaccination, people have infected, and also despite getting the Delta infection, they have got a reinfection with this new Omicron variant. So, and we don't have any concrete proven data to show that it will escape the vaccine-induced immunity or natural immunity, but based on the collection of mutations, scientists predict that it may escape the vaccine-induced immunity or the naturally acquired immunity. So that is the risk we are facing right now.
South Africa is not the only country where the ominous sounding Omicron has been found. Botswana, Belgium, Hong Kong and Israel too have reported cases.
So Omicron B11529 is named as a variant of concern because it has some concerning properties. This variant has a large number of mutations, and some of these mutations have some worrying characteristics. Once a variant is classified as a variant of concern, it's really important that we have good SARS-CoV-2 surveillance around the world, including better genomic sequencing, because we want to be able to detect this variant where it is circulating. It's also really important that studies are undertaken in the field to look at any clusters, and also the studies that are needed in the lab to look to see if there's any changes in severity severity, any changes in our impact on diagnostics, therapeutics, or vaccine. The good thing is that we have monitoring systems around the world to detect these variants very quickly. This variant was detected a few weeks ago, and already scientists are sharing research with us, information with us, so that we can take action. What's really important as an individual is to lower your exposure. These proven public health measures have never been more important. Distancing, wearing of a mask, making sure that it's over your nose and mouth with clean hands, making sure you avoid crowded spaces, be in rooms where there's good ventilation, and when it's your turn, get vaccinated.
Meanwhile, this development has prompted many countries such as the United Kingdom, United States, Australia, Japan, India, Iran, Brazil, Canada and Thailand to impose travel restrictions on certain African countries. Similarly, in Sri Lanka, the Director General of Health Services issued travel restrictions on Botswana, Lesotho, Namibia, Zimbabwe and Eswatini. As such, people with a travel history to these countries within the past 14 days will not be permitted to disembark in Sri Lanka from tomorrow until further notice. Travellers, however, arriving in the country today from the relevant countries would undergo an on-arrival PCR test at a Ministry of Health approved laboratory at Katunayaka or at a safe and secure certified level 1 hotel. If the on-arrival PCR report is negative, Sri Lankans, dual citizens and valid resident visa holders must undergo mandatory home quarantine for 14 days and inform their relevant area medical officer of health. Foreign national staffers at diplomatic missions or from UN-related agencies with permanent officers in Sri Lanka and their accompanying spouses, parents and children should be quarantined at MOH-approved residences or secure certified level 1 hotels. As for all other travellers, they should undergo quarantine at a safe and secure certified level 1 hotel.
President Gotabaya Rajapaksa held nothing back in giving a blunt reality check as he explained the truths behind the country's ailing economy. The head of state said that continued action by successive governments to live beyond the means has left the country in a vulnerable position, unable to withstand the shocks of the pandemic. Attending the Presidential Export Awards yesterday, the head of state noted that managing this situation requires unpopular policy interventions as the country is left with limited choices.
The 24th Presidential Export Awards ceremony for the financial years 2019 to 2020 and 2020 to 2021 was held at the Bandaranayake Memorial International Conference Hall yesterday under the patronage of President Gotabaya Rajapaksa. Organised by the Sri Lanka Export Development Board, the ceremony recognises the country's best exporters. This year's awards were presented in 2 main categories with 12 overall awards as well as 53 sectorial awards for products and services for each financial year.
I'm especially pleased to note that exports have now not only recovered to pre-pandemic levels but have in fact reach record highs. Even as we celebrate the success of Sri Lanka's export performance tonight, however, we must also face the reality of our current situation. We are at a very challenging moment in our country's history. The COVID-19 pandemic has had devastating impact on Sri Lanka. The restrictions necessary to prevent the spread of the virus even after the lockdowns were lifted means that economic productivity has not yet fully recovered. It should also be noted that government spending had to be increased greatly during the pandemic. Our foreign exchange reserves in particular have been badly depleted. This is especially concerning given the high external debt position Sri Lanka had even prior to the pandemic. For decades, successive governments have tried to ensure that the fruits of Sri Lanka's economic growth are fully distributed amongst the public. This has led to consistently high expenditure on infrastructure, services, and social welfare programs that benefited the wider population. Cumulatively, these efforts have resulted in Sri Lanka providing a relatively higher quality than other countries at similar income levels. Sri Lanka owes nearly over $4 billion in external debt payments in 2021 and 2022, including sovereign bonds repayments of $1 billion and $1.5 billion respectively. We must also pay nearly $1.3 billion in interest costs alone into 2022. With the proportion of commercial debt to concessionary funding having increased greatly in past decades, This had left Sri Lanka with very little fiscal space in which to maneuver when the external shock of pandemic occurred. Some European countries are considering lockdowns in the weeks ahead to avert more deaths taking place on a large scale. This could affect the recovery of our tourism sector as well as global demand for our exports. Global price levels have now reached record highs, with many regions experiencing their worst inflation figures in nearly 3 decades. The economic consequences of these ongoing issues will continue to impact Sri Lanka in the months to come. Managing this situation and keeping the country on the path to prosperity will require policy interventions, especially in the short term, that may be unpopular. I know that many of you are critical of these interventions. I urge you to recognize and understand that these measures are being imposed because we have little other choice in our present situation. The best way for our economy to grow in the medium to long term is by creating new export products while expanding into new export markets. There are significant opportunities for investments into organic fertilizer, organic agricultural production and processing, and for fostering new export markets for this produce. Similar opportunities exist around Sri Lanka's many mineral resources too. The government will play its part by supporting and facilitating new initiatives proposed by the private sector and by providing attractive incentives for foreign direct investment into strategically important industries. We will also ensure that remaining impediments to the performance of export industries will be quickly resolved. It is sad that despite being blessed with so many sources of renewable energy, so much of Sri Lanka's power is generated through fossil fuel and coal. That is why I have set a clear target for Sri Lanka to generate 70% of its energy from renewable sources by 2030. Other corrections necessary to create a more conducive environment for business, including streamlining regulations and maintaining policy consistency, are also of high priority going forward. These steps will support our economic recovery and help us achieve greater prosperity in future.
Parliamentarian Mayantha Dissanayake of the Samagi Jana Balawegaya today told the Parliament that no credible person or agency has confirmed a link between chemical fertilizer use and non-communicable diseases such as cancer and kidney disease. He made the remarks when the expenditure heads of the Ministries of Plantation and Land were taken up. In any case, the Plantation Minister assured the House that the sector is set for record revenue this year and that fertilizer issues will not surface again.
අපි පුරෝකථනය කරන ආකාරයට ශ්‍රී ලංකාවේ රබර් ආශ්‍රිත නිෂ්පාදන අපනයනයෙන් ශ්‍රී ලංකාවට වැඩිම අපනයන ආදායම ලැබෙන වසර 2021 වසර අපි ඩොලර් බිලියන ඉක්ම වූ ආදායමක් ප්‍රථම වතාවට රබර් ආශ්‍රිත නිෂ්පාදන අපනයනයෙන් ලබා ගන්නවා. ඒ වගේම තමයි අපගේ දේශීය පොල් ආශ්‍රිත නිෂ්පාදන අපනයනයෙන් ඉතිහාසයේ වැඩිම මුදල අපි ලබන වර්ෂය අපි ඩොලර් මිලියන 900ක ඉලක්කයක් දක්වා යාමට හැකි බව බොහොම පැහැදිලිව පුරෝකථනය කරලා තියෙනවා. අපි කුරුඳු ඇතුළු අපනයන භෝග ක්ෂේත්‍රයේ ඉතිහාසයේ වැඩිම අපනයන ආදායම ලබන වසර 2021 වසර අපි ඩොලර් මිලියන 450ක ඉලක්කයක් ඉතාම පැහැදිලිව ළඟා කර ගැනීමට හැකියාව තියෙන බව අපි විශ්වාස කරනවා. වැවිලි කර්මාන්ත ක්ෂේත්‍රයේ සමස්ත අපනයන ආදායම ඉතිහාසයේ වැඩිම මුදල ලබන වසර 2021 වසර අපි ඩොලර් බිලියන 3.8ක මුදලක් ලබා ගැනීමට හැකියාව තියෙන බව බොහොම පැහැදිලිව පුරෝකථනය කරලා තිබෙනවා. බලාපොරොත්තුව තව වසර දෙකකින් ඇඟලුම් අපනයනෙන් රටට ලැබෙන ඩොලර් බිලියන 5ක ප්‍රමාණය වැවිලි කර්මාන්ත ක්ෂේත්‍රයනුත් ශ්‍රී ලංකා ආර්ථිකයට දායකත්වයේ ශක්තිය ලබා දීමේ කියන දැඩි පරමාර්ථය ඇතුව අපි කටයුතු කරනවා. හරිත ආර්ථිකයක් පිළිබඳව අපේ රජයේ සංකල්පයන් මේ රටේ ජනගත කළේ මේ රටේ ජනතාව පිළිබඳව ඇති ආදරයෙන්. මේ රටේ ලක්ෂ ගණනක් ජනතාව පිළිකා වලින් වකුගඩු රෝගෙන් මිය ඇදෙනකොට බොහෝ නොවන රෝග වලින් මිය ඇදෙනකොට ඔවුන්ව ඒන් බේරා ගැනීමේ පරමාර්ථය ඇතුව තමයි සද්භාවයෙන් මේක ජනගත කළේ. ජනගත කිරීමෙන් පසුව ක්‍රියාත්මක කිරීමේදී යම් යම් අඩුපාඩු තිබෙනවා. ඒ අඩුපාඩු හදා ගන්න අපි කටයුතු කරමින් තිබෙනවා. ඒ කටයුතු යථාවත් කිරීමෙන් පසුව සම්පූර්ණ රසායනික පොහොර පමණක් භාවිතයෙන් අපි ලබන ප්‍රතිඵල වලට වඩා ඉහළ ගිය ප්‍රතිඵල රාශියක් අපේ සමස්ත කෘෂි කර්මාන්ත වැවිලි කර්මාන්ත ක්ෂේත්‍රයට ලබා ගැනීමට හැකියාව තිබෙන බව අපිට පැහැදිලි විශ්වාසයක් තිබෙනවා.
වැවිලි කර්මාන්තය පිළිබඳව අවශ්‍ය කරන පොහොර සහ පලිබෝධ නාශක ලබා දෙන්න කියන ඉල්ලීම මේ අවස්ථාවේදී කරනවා. ඇග්‍රෝ කෙමිකල්ස් නිසා වකුගඩු සහ කැන්සර් හැදෙන්න පුළුවන් කියන තර්කය ඇත්තෙම අද වෙනකන් කිසිම කෙනෙක් කිසිම දන්නා පිළිගත හැකි World Health Organization එකෙන් එහෙම කියලා නැහැ ඒ පිළිබඳව ඩිරෙක්ට් ලින්ක් එකක් තියෙනවා කියලා. ඒ නිසා මම ආණ්ඩුවෙන් ඉල්ලා සිටින්නේ ආණ්ඩුවේ ප්‍රතිපත්තිය නම් රසායනික හින්දා වකුගඩු සහ පිළිකා හැදෙන ඒ හේතුව නම් කරුණා කළා ඒ පිළිබඳව නිසි පරීක්ෂණයක් කළා මේ පාර්ලිමේන්තුවට දැනුවත් කරන්න කෙලිම ඒ පිළිබඳව සම්බන්ධතාවයක් තියනවාද කියන එක.
ගිය අවුරුද්දට සාපේක්ෂව මේ අවුරුද්දේ කිලෝ මිලියන 25කින් අපේ තේ නිෂ්පාදනය වැඩි වෙනවා. ගිය අවුරුද්දේ නියං කාලයක් තුනේ මේ අවුරුද්දේ කාලගුණය හොඳ නිසා ඇත්තටම කිලෝ මිලියන 25කින් වැඩි වෙනවා. පෝර ප්‍රශ්න නැවත ඇති වෙන්නේ නැහැ.
In the meantime, Samagi Janabalawege MP Vadivel Suresh was highly critical of the regional plantation companies while also accusing the officials of the Plantation Management Monitoring Division for being in cahoots with RPCs.
All these 22 companies, when the government hand out to these RPC companies, the golden shareholder is the Treasury Secretary. And additional to that, in the Plantation Ministry, there's a separate division introduced called Plantation Management Monitoring Division. Treasury Secretary and the Plantation Management Monitoring Division, not your period, Honorable Minister, they didn't perform well. Plantation Management Monitoring Division created to monitor the plantation companies, but they didn't do that. In spite of that, they are doing some other business. Soon after the retire from the PMMD, they are going to be a CEO to the companies. This is a situation. What happened was that PMMD division staffs also, they also joined part and parcel of the RPG company. And time to time, the government who came to power, they brought amendments to strengthen the RPC companies. Now ultimately, the present situation is government in lease out the company, the land to the companies. Now lease and Honorable Minister, lease and sublease. Out of these 22 companies, plantation, Hatton, Dicko area, now no more plantation. Plantation only with the Treasury Secretary originally signed the agreement, plantation. They were subleased to plantation from Ratnapura to Labukala. That is a lease out company. Now no, now that's coming under. There are some companies now illegal. Even whenever the industrial disputes comes regarding the workers something, if you're going to Labour Commission also, we are having the problem because the original, the legal, the company and the board, the chairman board is not there. It's something else. Karmanta Sala tika kar amatuma alatine Karmanta Sala okkoma Raje Bharadanaකොට පවත්තගෙන ඉන්න වෙලාවෙ දුන්නේ යකඩත් එක්ක. දැන් යකඩ ඔක්කොම විකුණනවා. ෆැක්ටරිස් ඔක්කොම ආන 8ක් විතර ෆැක්ටරි වුණා. 8ක් වල එක ෆැක්ටරි එකකට මැනුෆැක්චර් කරනවා. ඔක්කොම ස්ටේට් ප්‍රොපර්ටිස්. බංගලෝස් ටික ඔක්කොම එක එක විදිහට මෙයා කරලා දෙනවා. ලෑන්ඩ් ඔක්කොම. එතකොට කොහමද ගරු ඇමතුමා මේ සිලොන් ටී එක අපි රැකගන්නේ? කොය ලෝකයේද කොය රටේද ගරු ඇමතුමා මේ ජනාධිපතිතුමා තීන්දුවක් අරගෙන පාර්ලිමේන්තුවේ කතා කරලා කම්කර ඇමතුමා ගැසට් එකක් කරනවා වේජස් බෝඩ් එක ඩිස්කෂන් පස්සේ වේජස් බෝඩ් ඡන්දර දාලා ඡන්දෙන් වෙඩි ඡන්ද අරගෙන ගැසට් කරනවා 1000 රුපීස් වර්කර්ස් දෙන්න කියලා. දාලා පැය 24ක්වත් නැහැ. මේ RPC කම්පැනි කාරෝ කියලා නඩු දානවා කම්කර ඇමතුමාට විරුද්ධයෙන්. කතා කරන්න කියපුවා මං ගරු ඇමතුමා කියනවා සුරේෂ් I am also disappointed because I am also one of the වසූසාවි නඩු දාලා. කම්කර කොමසාරිස්තුමාට නඩු දාලා. කම්කර ලේකම්තුමාට නඩු දාලා. දැන් අපිට වෘත්තීය සමිති ප්‍රශ්න ඉන්ඩස්ට්‍රියල් ඩිස්පියුට්ස් අපි ඇසිස්ටන්ට් ලේබර් කමිෂන් සාකච්ඡාව යන්න බෑ. නඩු කියලා ඇසිස්ටන්ට් ලේබර් කමිෂන් අයින් වෙනවා. DCL යන්න බෑ. එයාටත් බෑ. ලේබර් කමිෂන් ගියොත් එයාත් උසාවියේ නඩු. මේක තමයි ඇත්ත තත්ත්වය. මේ ඔක්කොම මේ වුණ නිසා සියලු දේම බණ්ඩනවා. මේ industry is going to dog.
We will see you shortly on the other side of this break. Stay with us.
Big 3.
Welcome back. You're watching First at 9. Now, health experts say that the COVID pandemic has put the spotlight on one of the great failings of Sri Lanka's society, which is the inequity in education. They say that with schools going online, the disparity of education in city and rural schools has significantly widened. As such, parents have been urged to overcome their fears of COVID spread at schools and send their children to school, as virtual education is no substitute for traditional classroom.
The expert consensus across the globe, including that of the World Health Organization, is that schools should not be closed once more, and everything possible should be done to ensure that they stay open. Sri Lankan experts estimate that the learning loss of students in the Western province alone for this year is 90%, while it is 70% in other provinces. Speaking at an event yesterday, one of the leading immunologists in Sri Lanka, Dr. Chandima Jivandara, said that the disparity in the standards of education had significantly widened when schools took measures to go online.
Our children paid the heaviest price of the pandemic. Online teaching was adopted in many schools. However, due to lack of internet connectivity, information technology, technology, educational materials, and digital technology skills. Distance learning is difficult for teachers, students, and families in rural areas. There was a significant difference between the virtual learning standards of leading schools in the city and the rural schools in terms of technology and educational resources. When a child from a city school could have a full day of school through Microsoft Teams or Zoom, what a village child would receive would be some clips of worksheets sent by the teacher through WhatsApp to their parents or neighbors' phone. This has widened the disparity of education standard even further. Virtual learning is not a substitute for traditional classroom.
Due to the disruptions brought on by teacher-principal trade union actions, students were further robbed of their chance to receive education online. However, measures were taken by government and education sector officials to restart schools in a phased manner. With grades 6 to 9 resuming schools from the 22nd of November, all school grades have fully resumed educational activities. However, health officials say that there is hesitancy among parents to send their children to school.
At this moment, parents must be more vigilant to train their children for the health practices like wearing masks, maintaining social distances, as well as to avoid the crowding places. Not keeping the children at home without sending to the school. As well as the teachers and the principals of the schools, I think they have to realize the importance of keeping the school open by stick to the guideline which is released from the Ministry of Health. Accordingly, you can conduct the school performances to their children, but if you detect a child with fever or any other sickness, the child need to be separated from the other children of the class and hand over the child to parents, but not to stress the child by telling that the child is having corona, because there are so many other infections around like dengue and other viral infections. Because of that, advise the child in a way that child will not get stressed up till the child's illness is being proven by PCR or rapid antigen test. If it's become positive only, you have to take the measures to close that particular class.
Moving on with other stories, the Tamil National Alliance is seeking a joint US-India role in resolving the Tamil political issue in Sri Lanka. Visiting the United States, the TNA delegation, led by parliamentarian M.A. Sumandiran, called on the US government to take up a proactive role on Sri Lanka in addressing what they say the denial of political rights to the Tamil people.
The visiting Tamil National Alliance delegation, together with representatives of the Global Tamil Forum, had a number of engagements with key US government policymakers and members of the Congress to discuss the concerns of Sri Lanka's Tamil population. Issuing a statement, the Global Tamil Forum said that they are pleased with the discussions and remain encouraged by concerns expressed and responses received from the US. During their engagements, the delegation had expressed appreciation for the leadership taken by the United States at the United Nations Human Rights Council in promoting accountability, reconciliation, and human rights in Sri Lanka. The TNA delegation, led by MP M.A. Sumandiran, had also called for continued leadership for the US government at the UNHRC, taking into account Sri Lanka's failure to make satisfactory progress on implementing UNHRC Resolution 46/1. In the meantime, during an engagement with US State Department officials, including Assistant Secretary of State for the Bureau of South and Central Asian Affairs Donald Lu, the TNA delegation had called for a prospective US government role in promoting a holistic approach to reconciliation, including addressing the root cause of conflict and human rights violations, as well as the denial of political rights to the Tamil people. They had emphasized that addressing the legitimate aspirations of the Tamil people for equality, justice, peace, dignity, and meaningful power devolution is critical in guaranteeing non-recurrence of the issues faced by the Tamils. The statement says that the opportunities and challenges for changing the present conditions in Sri Lanka was highlighted during the meeting, while underscoring the transformative role the US government could play along with India at this critical juncture. Meanwhile, tweeting about the meeting, Assistant Secretary of State for the Bureau of South and Central Asian Affairs Donald Lu underscores that human rights are central to US foreign policy in Sri Lanka. He added that the US joined Sri Lankan Tamil people in search for lasting peace and full voice in deciding their country's future.
Welcome back, this is First at 9. Now, HCL Technologies believes that Sri Lanka has all the necessary requirements to provide a level playing field for information and communications technology related investment. Now, they say that university and advanced level graduates stand to benefit immensely with the company's expansion in the island, opening up employment opportunities.
HCL Technologies inaugurated its newest facility at the state-of-the-art Cinema and Life complex recently. Having the ability to accommodate 4,000 employees, this facility is the largest to be established in Sri Lanka. Further, HCL aims to target youth who are interested in the country's ICT field in providing employment opportunities. Speaking to First at 9, Chief Financial Officer of HCL Technologies, Pratik Agarwal explained their engagements in Sri Lanka's ICT sector.
Sri Lanka has what it takes to be on the IT map. First of all, English-speaking population, talent which is ready to learn, and I think the biggest thing is the customer service orientation, which is very important for IT services companies like ours. What we bring to the country is lot of training. Almost close to half of the people that we hire are fresh graduates from colleges or even A-level graduates from high schools. And we spend a lot of time and effort training those people, and the government's help in making that possible is always very welcome. We are investing a lot to get the people into the IT sphere, both the fresh college graduates as well as the A-level graduates from high schools.
And that's it from all of us here at First at 9. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.